Welcome to the Driven Female Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Melitta Campbell, award-winning marketing veteran and business coach for female entrepreneurs. Each week on this show, I'll be quizzing successful women about their business journey, the most important lessons they've learned along the way, and I'll be asking them to share some of their expertise with you. My aim is to help you dream bigger and achieve more by learning from what works and gaining tools, tips, and insights from women who are building a range of amazing businesses. Today, I'm excited to speak with Shivangi Volk, a master trainer, a leadership branding coach, and serial entrepreneur. Shivangi regularly designs leadership development interventions, consults and coaches senior teams, and conducts worldwide executive programs and workshops. She's trained leaders and management teams in 40 plus countries and in all continents. Prior to establishing her business, Shivangi's gained over 17 years experience in 4 different industries: reinsurance, pharmaceuticals, agrochemicals, manufacturing, and professional services. Today, Shivangi runs her own leadership development consulting company and is also the founder of non-profit ThriveWithMentoring.com. So hi Shivangi and welcome to the show.
Hello, hi Melitta. It's a delight to be speaking with you, and congratulations for the show. I think it's such a brilliant idea.
Thank you. And I'm excited to speak with you today because we've had some discussions in the past and you've got such an interesting evolution of your business. And I know people are going to take a lot away from what you want to share today. But let's start at the beginning. So what made you decide to start your own business?
Well, I mean, that journey, and I have been in my, let me call it versions of doing my own business for the last 5 years. But I think the journey of wanting to start my own business started 10 years back. And that was reading a book by Charles Handy called The Empty Raincoat. And Handy actually spoke about the notion of a portfolio career. And that idea sort of stayed with me because I said, and I was in quite a successful corporate job. I was also privileged to be promoted every second year or third year and, really doing well, in my corporate job. And I continuously felt as though that it is one way of living my life. And this whole notion of having a portfolio career where I could teach a bit, write a bit, train and have a business. And in my case, also, do something in the nonprofit sector and be with my children who are then much younger. Now they're 7 and 12. This whole notion was very attractive to me, to have a life which is rich with possibilities. And I think that then 5 years back, I decided to move away from a very structured, predictable, interesting, no doubt, and challenging corporate life to then becoming an entrepreneur. So yeah, that was really, really the start of the journey, Melinda.
So did you quit your job and start your business, or was there, did you kind of in sort of reduce your hours and build up your business? How did that work?
Yeah, so that is interesting because, and maybe I have one of these biases. My father is a lifelong learner. And yes, I did quit my job, but I did not jump 100% in business. I actually decided to do another master's. So I quit my job and I started a master's education in the field of organization development with very specific lenses around Gestalt, complexity, and systems thinking. And in parallel to my master's, which was, which took me sort of to the UK every second month, I started doing a lot of what I now call freelance work. So my background is, in leadership development and talent management. And I've done that, as I mentioned, in a few organizations, in a few industries. So it was very easy for me to get that sort of freelance work with many different brands. So I was a leadership development trainer. I did coaching assignments. I was assessing. I became a part of OD projects as a change facilitator and so on, right? So I sort of, that was my move or my way sort of to move from the corporate life to a more entrepreneurial life. I used education, as a tool, I could say, to become, much more grounded in some of the disciplines that I wanted to work with, and starting to freelance. And it's only 2 years back that I think I moved from what I called a freelance to a more full-fledged entrepreneurial, part of my life.
So you were doing your freelancing, and now I know you've moved into, you've used a franchise model. Yeah. What was the thinking that led you to switch models that way?
Yeah, so and I'll speak a little bit about what I mean by franchise model, and what are then the, let's say, the pros and cons of a franchise model, right? What the main driver, I must admit, for me to switch was really the push I felt when I was a freelancer for other brands. I continuously felt as if I wanted to go up the value chain. Because as a trainer or as a coach, when you're working with another brand, you're not an employee. Of course, I was always, sort of independent, but there is this still a little bit of a feeling of an employee, because you are deployed by the brand, in my case with large corporates, right? So I'm not a trainer inside the corporate, but I am a trainer or an assessor or a coach with a brand that has the client relationship. Now, the advantage of that is you don't need to be seeking your own business. So the whole sales and marketing, etc., part of your business is done by somebody else. The disadvantage of that, and maybe some of your listeners, are in that bucket at the moment, is that it is not lucrative, because you don't own the relationship. So whatever your deal is with this middle brand or middle agency, there is always a cap, to what you could make when you are a freelancer. And those are the pros and cons, right? And I decided, for me, I wanted to go up the value chain. I wanted to own the client relationship. I wanted the independence to go to whichever clients that I wanted to work with. And I wanted a better commercial gain. Now, of course, I could jump, and today I am doing elements of that. I could jump to become completely independent, right? And create my own content, create my own processes, etc. What I chose, and I know that this is not an opportunity that is readily available, but sometimes it is. And I was lucky enough, because of my network, to have the opportunity with a partner of mine to buy into the franchise of an existing large brand. And this is a large American top 20 training and leadership development company. And I represent, through my company now, Exponential, we are sort of the Swiss branch of Vital Smarts America. And through that, we bring a lot of branded trainings which have millions of research behind them. One of them is called Crucial Conversations, which a lot of people know. Another one is called Influencer. A third one is Power of Habit, and so on. So the franchise model is where they prepare the content and they give you, let's say, standardized material around how one could market their product. But of course, what you're bringing then is your networks, your relationships, your expertise about what will work in your local market, because that's created, sort of, in our case, it's created with a large American point of view. And we are now trying to bring that to a Swiss market. This might be in English, we localize, we also offer our training programs in German, because that's where we are currently focusing. So that those are sort of the interplays. But one thing that I would like to mention, and I'm sure that your listeners know that, Melitta, that they say 4 out of 5 or 9 out of 10 businesses, small businesses, they do not survive after the first 2 years. As far as the franchise model is concerned, the survival rate seems to be far higher. And that might be because of some of those tried and tested content pieces, brand, processes, etc., that are available when you buy into a franchise rather than creating everything yourself.
Yeah, because one of some of the reasons why these businesses fail is lack of planning, overestimating the number of sales that they can make, not asking for help and getting sort of coaching and support. But with a franchise model, all of that comes with it. So I guess it helps you to bypass.
Some of the franchise models offer more than the others, and you and me spoke about network marketing, as also sort of a form. Maybe it's not directly franchise, but there are many similarities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel that depending on the franchise that you are able to obtain, the coaching mentoring part might vary. The marketing material and the localization for your for your reality might vary. For example, I work for the franchise of a company which has millions of budgets in marketing, and I don't, and I have to. So the material is created with sort of that reality in mind, and then to localize that, sometimes it does feel as if it's like starting from scratch, but in many ways. So I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as an entrepreneur, and I'm sure you face that, is that we are doing the work and we are selling and marketing the work. And it's challenging to balance these two things, right? Whilst you're doing the work, you don't have so much time to sell and market it. If you're selling and marketing, you're finding it challenging to do the work. And how do we balance that? And I think that's where the franchise model definitely helps, because even though I'm doing the work, so that means that I'm still the trainer of the Crucial Conversations brand, but the IP is ready, the material is ready. So I'm doing the work, but I'm not starting from scratch, if you know what I mean. What I'm doing is I'm creating a match between a highly developed product with millions of research behind it and the needs of my client and what they want to achieve in terms of their business objectives, and I'm at the interface, right? So I'm bringing this, but then I'm making it relevant for my client, and that, as you know, in most of the businesses is probably the biggest value add, right? And that's why we are also interested in working with people, and that's, I think, the benefit of also mentors and coaches as compared to content. Because today content is democratized, right? I mean, look at the various MOOCs available. If you wanted to learn on negotiation skills and you go and search for a MOOC on negotiation skills, you have so many, the Harvards and Stanfords of the world putting together free information out there. But what you do also with your business, Melitta, is it's not generically talking about negotiation skills. It's talking about how do those negotiation skills apply for your business at your stage, given your credentials and credibility and given your network. And that is the biggest benefit I feel that a mentor or a coach brings. And that actually is the game changer, isn't it?
Yeah, because you can get all of this knowledge, but unless you know what to do with it and how to apply that and implement it consistently, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's what I see with a challenge with a lot of business programs, is that you get that knowledge. Yeah, I know what to do now. Great. But then how to do it is missing. And that person in your corner that's like helping you specifically overcome your challenges and apply things the right way and shortcut these problems that you're having. Or a lot of it is the mindset piece, isn't it? It's like, can I really do this? You need support to make that happen. And you say,
so contextualizing what is available out there to your reality, and then the accountability piece also, right? So in my life, I must admit, mindset was not so much of an issue. And I do think that might be probably because of my upbringing, the fact that I had success both in my career, in corporate, but also as a businesswoman. And as I've mentioned to you, also with the nonprofit I have created with Thrive with Mentoring. So mindset was not personally my issue. I think my challenge is really balancing my time and energy across the various entities, and then this accountability piece becomes very important. And I'm sure that this is, in a different way, a challenge for a lot of us, right? Because there is stuff that we find interesting, that we enjoy to do, and then there is stuff that we must do, that we know is important for the business. We may not be good at it, and hence, and I do think the motivation and ability are quite linked, right? When you're not very good at it, you're not going to feel very motivated. Then a lot of these shoulds come into your mind. Then you do it in any case. It always takes you more energy. I mean, I am thinking in all of these respects, how important it is to identify maybe partnerships. And I'm not just thinking necessarily of a mentor coach sort of partnership, which I think is very important and critical for any entrepreneur, but also partnerships in terms of business, right? So if you are one sort of, let's say you are very good at doing the work, maybe you want to partner with somebody who's good at marketing and selling the work, and that's always possible. I know that partnerships are also, they come with their own challenges, but that's one thought that I wanted to leave. If you are starting off your business, the chances are high that you might find a lot of resonance with somebody that seems similar to you. And my advice would be for you, actually do not necessarily partner with somebody who's similar to you. Try to partner with somebody who has complementary skills, as compared to you, because you may not feel as comfortable as compared to somebody who's similar to you, with whom you can be even friends. But then if you think of the business, the complementary skills are what's going to help you to grow the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the partnerships are so important for small businesses. That's really a key area to look at in terms of achieving growth. And there's so many different forms of partnership as well, and they can have different roles within your organization, but they can be a lot of fun as well. It can get lonely work building your business on your own, so to have these other projects or parts of your business where you work with someone else can be really valuable as well.
Yeah. And I find that as we go through different phases, right, of becoming, let's say, I love that term, saying it's like becoming myself, right? We go through various phases of becoming ourselves. And initially it was a more esoteric concept for me, what is this becoming oneself? But it really is a journey, because you start with, you need to start at the beginning. You need to start with where you are, and you will have some notions about what you might like to do, what you see yourself doing, what you see yourself sustaining. And then you start living that process. And in my case, I can definitely say that every year of the last 5 years has been dramatically different, because each time I've realized, and of course I've loved each one of these 5 years that I have been an entrepreneur, but each one of those years had a different focus. I started with imagining something, and then something else happened most of the times. And then it was an evolving through the process, right? Yeah. And like you and me were saying, Melitta, I think it's so important to enjoy that process, because we might get into, there is a danger of going, in that downward spiral and beating ourselves up and saying, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And the fact is that you will never know unless you have done something, if that was just something attractive in your imagination, or if that is something real in your life today. I can give you a concrete example, right? What I have learned over the last 2 years with Exponential is that I'm pretty good at marketing and brand building. I'm pretty good at that, okay? I'm not very good at sales. I wouldn't say sales in terms of, am I not able to have a sales conversation and sell? I can do that, but sales is not about that. Sales is about, a sales discipline and all these things that I read and learn, saying there need to be 7 touch points, especially for my sort of business, because Exponential is B2B, it's business to business. And I'm not selling to an individual who's buying for an individual. I'm actually selling to a company, and that individual is buying for their company. company. And I'm a small entity with my partner in Exponential, so it's two of us, and we are selling to large corporates with large teams of human resources and procurement and other decision makers. Now, what helps is the franchise, definitely, because we are able to deploy our solution across multiple countries, etc. So we do that. But that conversation that we are having with these decision makers inside corporates, this is a highly time consuming affair, and it needs, this typical sales cycle, if you're super lucky, the shortest for me was 2 months, but it's typically 6-8 months, could be a year. Yeah. And what I'm realizing is that I'm very good at, I do a lot of stuff like marketing, writing articles, creating videos. This sort of stuff energizes me and I can do that. But the discipline required to meet either the same or different people in an organization, as they say, 7, 8, 10 times, I'm bad at it. I don't have energy for it. I do a lot of shirts, I say, I must do that, but I drop the ball. And I think that I'm just thinking, I could keep telling myself I can get better at this. And, so many people say, of course you can sell if you want to. But I'm like, yeah, but that's not the sales, right? The sales process is about consistency. And by nature, I like diversity. And so now, me and my partner, we're really thinking about, we really need to partner with somebody who feels excited about that consistent sales discipline, because even though we are getting a bit better, admittedly, I think we all get better, we are nowhere reaching the potential of our business, and that's just a fact. And that's not, we have a fantastic product. Our marketing and brands are very good. We also have extremely good referrals. So everything is going for us, but what's missing at the moment is that sales discipline. And in my case, as I told you, of course, I have, the nonprofit, which also keeps me quite busy, gives me a lot of energy, but of course does take me away from, being consistent with that sales discipline I spoke about.
Yeah, I think it's good to take that time to really understand where are your strengths, and your weaknesses are your areas of growth, of course. But there are going to be some areas of growth you're really excited about working on, and some that you just aren't interested in at all. And then in that case, it's great to partner or outsource or find some other way, because if it's not enjoyable, if it's not something that you want to develop in, you're always going to make excuses. You're never going to, you're never going to find your full potential. So being honest with yourself about, okay, these are weaknesses because I've just never done it before, but I'm excited to learn. On those areas, like, well, this is a weakness because I'm just not interested or motivated in the least. It's really not going to help you to keep trying in that area. So, but it's as you say, it's really, entrepreneurship is the most wonderful journey of self-discovery, because you'll learn all of these things that you never realized you could do before, and all these things that you never realized you didn't know how to do, but you have to find a way through things. And we're just learning and growing all the time, as long as you have that growth mindset, which is really important. You won't get far in business without it.
Yeah. And I always encourage, my mentees or women coaches, or people who want to work, who want to move from corporate to starting their own business, because the grass does look greener on the other side, doesn't it? And I must say it was the same for me. This whole entrepreneurial lifestyle seemed very attractive, and the corporate life seemed a bit drab in front of that. And there are elements of truth to that, but the thing is, you really need to work hard, don't you? You are, as an entrepreneur, I'm just comparing that to my corporate life. There was an IT manager, and there's a salesperson, and there's a team, and it's like, and then in an entrepreneur life, it's like, you are everything. If your computer is not working, if your systems don't work, you need to figure it out. And of course, now I've gone on that journey and I've discovered the wonderful world of virtual assistants. And I would highly encourage, everybody who's starting on that journey to really think about platforms like Upwork or Fiverr.com, where you can start outsourcing specific bits, right? Not because you cannot do it, but is that the best use of your time? I'm always thinking about, is that the best use of my time? And if your business or your venture is of a particular size, then I think those platforms become a bit limiting, because then you want somebody who's working for you and doing the work, right? Because typically on the platforms, it's like you put your work and then people pitch for it, and then you go with one person one time, another person another time, and the quality can fluctuate. And you also then want somebody who understands your business, your philosophy, your language, and so on. So now, and this is very recent. I mean, I think it's 8 to 10 months, So it's really very recent that I have identified. I feel, and again, I did not do that with one person, right? But various people, again, looking at the strengths that they bring and how that can contribute in ensuring that my business moves forward, right? I mean, a very simple thing that I think a lot of people know but don't do probably enough is, we all know social media is extremely important, but social media is a beast. If you really want to feed this beast, and if you want to be on multiple channels, for example, if you want to be on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, you could just spend your time just writing posts and creating videos on these platforms. You could do that all day if you wanted to, and so it becomes very important. And then I get to learn about, okay, so what are the schedulers, and how do you batch produce, and how can you actually outsource something, where somebody else can make it look better, or for example, I mean, a podcast that you're doing, Melitta, I learned from you also that you can also outsource it to an audio engineer so that it sounds better, and so on. So you start looking at various kinds of professionals and using what I call much more packets of skills from them, right? Because I think one of the mistakes we can make as an entrepreneur, and I have made those mistakes in the beginning, is that we hire somebody and then we realize that they are not the best fit, but the outgoing, and I have many friends who are entrepreneurs, right? And I've had sometimes conversations with them saying, wow, I hired this team of 3, and next year I cannot pay them next month I cannot pay them their salary because of this happened and COVID happened, etc. Right? Now, I have personally so far stayed away from that, so I'm always working with people on a project basis rather than employment basis as an entrepreneur. Doesn't mean that after you reach a particular size, you cannot employ people, but you have to be really careful, right? And I think that's probably one of the challenges that some entrepreneurs face, that their fixed costs are much higher and they're not able to manage those, right? And this can be, of course, not just employees. It can be your office costs. It can be, for some people who are more in product business, it's sort of the investments that you need to make upfront as compared to a business like mine, which is much more service orientated. And I think that those decisions, and that's such a steep learning curve, right? Because I've realized that you can read it and you can understand it, but when you read it, you understand it, and then you have made your own mistake, then that's actually a far better way to learn as compared to just cognitively understanding something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of the process of being an entrepreneur is messing things up on a regular basis so we can learn and move forward, because failure is just information. And very often it's the information we need to push us towards that next success. So it's something that you have to get very familiar with and comfortable with.
And I say that, right? I love this quote, and I don't remember who said that, but I love that quote which says, there is nothing like failure, it's only feedback. And I think that's a click though. Again, I have heard this quote and I believed in it, but I think to live it is a journey, because I think it's difficult for us as an entrepreneur to just say there's nothing like failure, it's feedback. Unless we know what are we going to do instead, what is it actually that did not work, what are the parameters that need to change, and what am I going to try next? And of course, all of this also requires some sort of, friend of mine said this morning, you're a bit lucky you have a cushion. And I was like, I didn't think about that I have a cushion, but probably I do, right? Because I think in some ways, when you are starting off something, it's really good to not go into that with a feeling of scarcity, because the feeling of scarcity itself can feed into this, failure, which, I mean, every successful entrepreneur will say that their success is on the steps of tons of failures, right? But when you're starting that new, you really hope that it's not you. You really hope that you can really succeed, that you can really be different. And I think the mindset is you must almost expect that failure. You must almost expect that that is the bedrock, that's the foundation on which you can build your business. But which also means that you need to have some sort of a plan B. And I love that idea. And as I said, I speak to a lot of people that I know want to move from corporate to starting their own thing, saying, start with a side hustle, right? I mean, the sort of thing that you and me have done, Melitta, this is a high danger strategy. I think it's better to start with the side hustle. See what works, see what resonates. What you mentioned in the beginning, right? That reduce maybe from 100% work to 80% work to 50% work, and keep increasing the amount of time that you have, that you are spending on building your own business. And then see, and whilst you're making all those quote unquote mistakes, which are the bedrock of becoming successful later, it's not as if you are worried about, okay, how am I going to pay my bills next month,
Yeah.
I think that actually is a recipe for disaster, because then that puts you on the downward spiral. It's very difficult when you're continuously bothered about how am I going to pay my bills, to feel abundant, to feel, okay, this is an experiment, this is just feedback. I think those two things, they don't match, right? So that is my my invitation to everybody who's thinking about starting off on their own. And I know there are more and more people, especially given the pandemic that we are living in. Start something that is small. Think about the skill set that you can really, that is commercially of value, right? And in my case, that was the skill set of being the trainer, of being the assessor. And I realized that a lot of people who are in those sort of senior corporate roles that I was in, head of leadership development for a large company, for a large region, Europe, Africa, Middle East, your role becomes so much more about managing stakeholders, managing politics in an organization, and you go away and away from skills which are of value on the open market. And I think that's the awareness that you need to bring. And one of the things I did, and because I love, to be the trainer, to be the coach, I never went away in those 17 years of corporate that I did. I always said, of course, I would work with a large brand, let's say the Ashridge Business School. But I would always tell them, if there are 4 consultants and trainers who are required to do this work, please give 3 and I will be the 4th. So I always, and that's how I also build my, in Malcolm Gladwell's work, the 10,000 hours that you require to become very good at something, right? I don't think I became a master trainer because of my 5 years of individual experience where I have external clients. I have been a trainer for 20 years now. First inside an organization, and maybe doing a bit lesser as compared to what I do today, which is a lot more, but I have built that muscle over time. I have made those mistakes. I didn't come out of corporate and say, now what am I going to do? I sort of knew what is it that I can do, that I can sell. And I made this transition from doing it in corporate, doing it as a freelancer, and now doing it as a business owner, right? So continuously going up that value chain.
Yeah, great. And you've just shared so many valuable pieces of advice here. I just want to quickly, before we wrap up, go into your nonprofit, and not to go into the business model part of it, but it's all about mentoring women. And I feel that there's a lot of this mentoring for women in the corporate world, but there's a little bit lacking when it comes to the entrepreneurial world. Yet it's so important for us all to have access to role models, coaches, mentors to help us go through that process of failing and messing up and learning through that process. And a lot of the time we can be resilient and we can have grit and we can grow, but it's so much easier if you've got someone behind you supporting you along the way. What advice do you have for women who may be looking for a mentor, as how to find a mentor, how to get the most from that relationship?
Yeah. So I founded again the same time as my business, also the nonprofit called thrivewithmentoring.com. And we started as a small chapter in Zurich. And now, in the meanwhile, we are in 5 countries and around 12 cities in the world. And we've catalyzed through this platform one on one mentoring relationships, right? And of course, the majority of our mentees currently are in jobs. I mean, some of them with side hustles, some of them wanting to move out of it. We have also, as a platform, those struggle to find mentors for women who are entrepreneurs. And in a way, I can understand that, right? Because when a woman is going on an entrepreneurial journey, she's so full of all the stuff that she wants to get right that she doesn't feel very ripe to be mentoring somebody else on it. And I think that's where, Melitta, you're doing a wonderful job with your group coaching, because I think that is really so needed in this world. How does one go about finding a mentor? I mean, of course, if you are a woman, we can help you. If you are working with Thrive with Mentoring, go and log on there, create an account, and when we launch in your city, we can help you, because that's what we are doing. We're actually getting women mentors who are not working in their organization, because what we realized was that for a mentoring relationship to really become very trusting and also sort of unbiased, it really helps to get a mentor who does not work in the same organization. Because the challenge with having a mentor working in your own organization is that at the back of your mind, you're continuously thinking, if I show my vulnerabilities, this is a senior leader in my organization, can this information be somehow used in a way that I'd not like to see, right? And that's there, and maybe that doesn't happen, but that's there at the back of your mind. And I think that's actually the success of a platform like Thrive, that you get a senior professional who's in your corner, but their life is completely independent of you, right? Especially that there are no sort of organizational boundaries that you need to be worried of. As far as an entrepreneur is concerned, tough, much tougher. I mean, there are some programs that I know of that have come into Switzerland and exist in many parts of the world that say that, we are your business mentors. So we'll help you with a platform. We'll tell you, right from what business you should be in and what is your calling and how to align that to how to commercialize your business. How do you do your sales and marketing? How do you do your social media? And, how do you close your sales and NLP and whatever else, right? So there are, of course, and there are a lot of internet marketeers, offering those kind of products. I really feel that every business, depending on the person who wants to start that business and depending on the nature of the business and the sort of availabilities that they have in their network, each needs to decide what is the best mentoring support that I can get, and you might get lucky. You might actually meet a person who's running a successful business. I mean, from time to time, I get these requests saying, can you be my mentor? Now, of course, as the founder of Thrive with Mentoring, I'm trying to stay away from the role of a mentor using that platform. I do much more mentoring with students, MBA students. I also mentor a lot of businesses who are in developing countries, actually, through another platform called the Cherry Blair Foundation, for those of you who know that. So I do that, but I'm realizing also I'm a bit reluctant to take somebody in starting off their business, because simply their needs are so high, they just need so much stuff, that it will become difficult for me to do justice, because they need support on so many different bases. So I would always recommend, either buy that service, which is available, and maybe more than a business mentor. And, I always wonder, what's the difference between a business mentor and a business coach? And I know that people use these terminologies interchangeably. But I would say, if you're starting a business, then really look at somebody who has sort of gone on that same journey and see if, what is a right fit for you, because depending on the stage of your business, you will need different kinds of mentoring. Like you mentioned, Melitta, you're working with women who are right at the beginning, early stages, really trying to figure out what is it that they want to do. if I wanted a business partner, a business mentor, I need to look at other kinds of, resources and mentoring that is available, because I'm not at an early stage of my business. I need to scale my business. I have a very specific challenge with sales, and I need to probably, maybe it's not even a mentor, but I was thinking of a profile. I probably need much more to hire or partner with somebody who has a more sales hunter profile, as they call it, because I'm good at sales farming, at becoming better at an account that I already own. So that's that. I think that depending on that, and I don't know if there is a tool or a framework to do that, but it really depends on what phase, what sort of support that you are really looking at. Because if you're at the very start, you just need multiple things. And then once you know those multiple things, you can start figuring out, as you learn through your own process, what is that specific niche where I need help. And that's where I think, especially if we look at women networks, they can help tremendously, right? Because there you will be able to figure out, for my niche and given my need, who might be the best fit. Because otherwise we're just not aware. I think that a lot of these women exist in the ecosystem that we live in, but we are not aware of them. And I think that's where networks really help, going and asking and seeking. Conversations that you and me are having, Melitta, and sharing resources, I think these are so helpful, right? Because on the one hand, they feel very supportive. And on the other hand, they sort of are giving a missing part of the puzzle. Because sometimes I feel in these conversations and through networking conversations, I become aware of stuff that I did not even know I needed. So that's quite fascinating with the networks.
And often with my conversations with entrepreneurs, it's when they're, I need to scale up, I need to move forward, but I just can't figure out this bit. And then when you speak to them, you realize there's actually a lot more than that they're missing. So that's where my group program comes in. More for women who have 1 to 5 years in business, but that it's still not quite coming together. Then that really takes them back to the foundation and helps them rebuild that, and gives them the fresh perspectives, plus the weekly personal support all the way through. Whereas my one-to-one coaching is more for women like yourself who have an established business and just need those additional tools to take it and really scale it up and move to those sort of prosperity and freedom stages in business, and it's fun to work with the two different dimensions there as well.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Great. You have shared so much valuable advice. Thank you so much, Shvangi. Is there one last piece of advice you'd like to give out to the women out there before we wrap up? I know it's hard. You've covered so much already.
Yeah, I know. But one last thing that I would say is, keep learning. If you keep this, and I don't know how to best put it, because I think to learn, you need almost like a beginner's mind, and I know it's a very Zen concept, but it is really true, right? At the stage at which we think we sort of know it all, then we stagnate. So I would always, the one last piece of advice is to try, if you can, to go away from all the biases, despite all the experiences that you have had, and go back to this beginner's mind, right? To keep learning and say, okay, if I were a beginner in this, what would I need to think about? Because it's so easy to be drawn into saying, oh, I've tried this and this doesn't work. And so just go back to the beginner's mind.
I love that. Brilliant. I'm definitely going to be trying that out myself. Shvangi, thank you so much. I'll include your profile and links below this message so everyone can get in contact with you. But thank you so much for your time and for sharing so many valuable advice and learning points.
Thank you so much. It's been delightful, Melitta, to speak with you. And I'm sure, though it's one of our first conversations, we're going to keep in touch and going to learn from each other.
Thank you for joining us today. I hope you took away as much value as I did. Let me know what your biggest takeaways have been in the comments section or in the Facebook group. And if you enjoyed the show, then be sure to leave a review and share this podcast with your network and business besties. There's a lot more tools, tips, and insights coming up for you in the next episode, so don't miss next week's podcast. Or better still, subscribe now so you never miss your weekly dose of inspiration. I've been Melitta Campbell, business coach for female entrepreneurs, and I look forward to meeting you in the next episode. But before I sign off, I want to invite you to join the Driven Female Entrepreneur community on Facebook, where you can hang out with me, many of the guests from the show, as well as hundreds more like-minded women. In the group, you'll also experience daily tools, tips, and inspiration to help you take your business to the next level. And if you're serious about building your business but would like support to do so, my Dream Clients Blueprint program or one-to-one business coaching could be just what you need. Find out more and book your complimentary coaching session at melittacampbell.com. Meantime, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.